Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coins HD, treasure hunters and coin lovers. If you've ever wondered whether the change in your pocket could be hiding a small fortune, today's video might just surprise you. Because in this video, we're diving deep into the world of the United States of America Jefferson Nickel, the humble 5-cent coin from the year 1985. Now, you might think that a coin from the 1980s isn't old enough to be valuable, but hold on tight, because some rare varieties and minting errors from this year have shocked collectors around the world, with one Jefferson nickel selling for a jaw-dropping $68,400. That's right, a simple 5-cent coin that could change your life, so grab your magnifying glass, because by the time you finish this video, you'll know exactly what to look for in your own pocket change. We're going to talk about the coin's history, design, hidden details, minting varieties, and the mysterious errors that turn an ordinary 1985 nickel into a collector's dream. Let's start our journey back in time. The year was 1985, Ronald Reagan was president, the Cold War was still ongoing, and Michael Jordan was taking the NBA by storm. The world was changing fast, but one thing that remained constant in America's everyday life was the Jefferson nickel, a coin that had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the famous Buffalo nickel. Designed by sculptor Felix Schlag, it paid tribute to the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, a founding father, author of the Declaration of Independence, and visionary statesman who left an unshakable mark on the nation. On the front, or obverse, of the coin, you'll see the classic left-facing portrait of Jefferson himself. The words, "In God We Trust," appear along the left side, while "Liberty" and the year, 1985, are inscribed along the right. Depending on where it was minted, you might also find a small mint mark just below the year, a P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for the San Francisco Mint, where proof coins were made. Turn the coin over, and you'll find the elegant image of Jefferson's Virginia estate, Monticello, one of the most beautiful pieces of architecture in early American history. The building's detailed columns, dome, and steps give the coin its instantly recognizable look. Above it reads, E pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many, one. Beneath Monticello are the inscriptions, Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. It's a simple yet timeless design that's remained mostly unchanged for decades, a small piece of American heritage carried by millions of people every day. But even though the design stayed the same, not every 1985 Jefferson nickel was created equal. In fact, some rare examples of this coin contain minting errors or variations that make them worth far more than their face value. And understanding these details is the key to discovering whether your nickel might be worth thousands of dollars. Let's talk about the basics first. Most 1985 nickels were struck on a copper-nickel composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing 5 grams each. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins, as did Denver, while the San Francisco Mint produced smaller quantities of high-quality proof coins for collectors. Because of this massive production, most 1985 nickels are extremely common, but a small number stand out for very special reasons. One of the main factors that determines value is condition. Coins that have been in circulation for decades show wear, scratches, and loss of luster. But those that remain in pristine condition, especially those that have never been used, are graded as mint state by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. For example, a 1985 Jefferson nickel graded MS-67 or MS-68 is considered extremely rare and can command impressive prices at auction, but the real excitement begins when we talk about errors and varieties. These are the kinds of mistakes made during the minting process that turn an ordinary coin into a unique collectible. And believe it or not, some of the most valuable coins in the world exist because of these happy accidents. So what kinds of errors should you look for in your 1985 Jefferson nickel? Let's go through some of the most important ones. First, there's the double die error, one of the most popular and collectible mistakes. This happens when the coin's design is struck twice, slightly out of alignment, causing the lettering or numbers to appear doubled. On the 1985 nickel, doubling may appear on the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date itself. If you notice any doubling on the letters or numbers, even slight, you might be holding a valuable variety. Next, keep an eye out for off-center strikes. This occurs when the coin blank, called a planchet, isn't properly aligned with the die during striking. The result is a coin with part of the design missing or shifted off to one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the coin's value, especially if the date is still fully visible. Another fascinating and valuable error is the clipped planchet. This happens when the metal sheet used to make coins was punched incorrectly, leaving a curved or jagged clip missing from the edge. These clipped planchets are visually striking and often command high prices among collectors, but perhaps the most mysterious and desirable errors of all are wrong planchet errors, coins that were accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination. For example, a few 1985 Jefferson Nickels are believed to have been struck on planchets intended for pennies or dimes. Because of their unusual weight and color, these coins are easily recognizable, and extremely rare. Then there's the full steps variety, something that Jefferson nickel specialists pay very close attention to. When the coin is struck with a strong, sharp die, the steps on the front of Monticello appear in full detail, crisp, separate, and perfectly defined. Over time, many coins were produced with weak strikes, making the steps appear worn or flat. But a true full steps coin, with all 5 or 6 steps clearly visible, is a rarity. These are the coins that can reach incredibly high prices at auction, especially in top mint state grades. Now, let's talk about proof coins for a moment. The 1985 Jefferson Nickel proof, struck in San Francisco, was made using specially polished dies and planchets, giving it a mirror-like finish. These coins were never meant for circulation and were sold directly to collectors. While most are worth only a few dollars, exceptionally well-preserved examples, especially those with deep cameo contrast, can also fetch impressive sums. So how do you know if your 1985 Jefferson Nickel might be valuable? Start with a few simple checks. First, look at the mint mark. Is it from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco? Proof coins, with the S mark, and well-struck Denver issues are often worth a closer look. Next, inspect the steps on Monticello, count them carefully. If you can see all of them in perfect detail, you may have a full steps example. Then, examine the surface under good lighting. Look for any doubling, cracks, off-centering, or discoloration that might suggest an error coin. Finally, check the coin's condition. A coin that looks brand new, with a bright luster and no visible scratches, has a much higher chance of being valuable. Once you've found something interesting, it's always best to have it graded by a professional service. That's how collectors authenticate coins and determine their exact value. And now comes the part you've been waiting for, the unbelievable auction story. Among the countless 1985 Jefferson Nickels that passed through the hands of Americans over the decades, one stood out as a true masterpiece. It was an extraordinary, perfectly struck coin with incredible detail and full steps on Monticello, a flawless example of the mint's craftsmanship. When it finally appeared at auction, collectors went wild. Bidding wars erupted, and when the dust settled, that single 1985 Jefferson Nickel sold for an unbelievable $68,400. Yes, $68,400 for a 5-cent coin. Just think about that for a moment. A coin that you could find in loose change, sitting in an old jar, or forgotten in your wallet could be worth enough to buy a car, pay off debts, or take a dream vacation. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every piece of change has a story, and sometimes, those stories are worth a fortune. So before you spend your next nickel, take a second look. You never know what history, rarity, or hidden treasure might be staring back at you. Today, we're uncovering the incredible story behind one of the most overlooked coins in American history, the United States of America Jefferson Nickel, 5 cents, from the year 1990. Now, before you think this is just another ordinary coin, stay tuned, because the 1990 Jefferson Nickel hides secrets that could make it worth thousands of dollars. That's right, some of these seemingly ordinary nickels have been sold for jaw-dropping amounts of money due to rare errors, unique varieties, and pristine condition. And one extraordinary example stunned collectors when it sold for an unbelievable $54,700. So, get ready, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to identify whether that old 1990 nickel sitting in your coin jar could be worth a small fortune. Let's start with a bit of history, because every coin tells a story. The Jefferson nickel has been part of American life since 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin was created to honor Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, a man known for his brilliance, leadership, and vision that shaped the country's early history. By 1990, the Jefferson nickel had already become a cornerstone of American currency, circulating in the pockets of millions of citizens across the nation. It was the era of compact discs, payphones, and the rise of the Internet, and while technology was changing fast, the design of the nickel remained timeless. It continued to bear Jefferson's dignified portrait on the front and his famous home, Monticello, on the back, a design that had stood the test of time for more than half a century. On the obverse, or front, of the 1990 Jefferson nickel, you'll see Jefferson's left-facing portrait, framed by the words, "In God We Trust," to the left and "Liberty," to the right, followed by the year, 1990. Just below the year, you might notice a small mint mark, P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or an S for the San Francisco Mint, where proof coins were made. Flip the coin over, and there's the stunning image of Monticello, Jefferson's majestic Virginia estate. Above it, the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, proudly reads, "Out of many, one," a motto that defines the spirit of the United States. Below Monticello, you'll find the words, Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. Even though this design was used for decades, not all nickels are created equal, and the 1990 edition has some surprises that make it special. You see, millions of Jefferson nickels were struck that year across multiple mints, but as with any large-scale minting operation, not every coin came out perfectly. And those imperfections, the rare minting errors and unusual die varieties, are what makes certain 1990 nickels extremely valuable today. Let's dive into what makes some of these coins worth serious money. The first thing collectors look for is condition. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins that were used in daily circulation naturally suffer from scratches, nicks, and fading details. But a 1990 Jefferson nickel that has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, with sharp details, bright luster, and no signs of wear, can fetch astonishing prices. Coins graded as mint state 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC are considered extremely rare. Now, let's talk about errors, the fascinating mistakes that make coins one of a kind. These are the real treasures that collectors go crazy for. One of the most valuable types is the double die error, where the coin is struck twice by the die, slightly misaligned. This creates a shadow-like doubling effect on the text or numbers. On the 1990 nickel, doubling may appear on the words, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or the date, 1990. These doubled features can range from subtle to dramatic, and the more visible the doubling, the more valuable the coin becomes. Another exciting variety to look out for is the off-center strike. When a coin blank is misaligned during striking, part of the design ends up missing, leaving an uneven border. The more off-center the strike, especially if the date is still visible, the rarer and more valuable the coin is. Then there's the clipped planchet error, where a small portion of the metal blank is missing because of a misfeed in the press. These nickels have a distinct curved edge or straight clip, making them instantly recognizable and highly collectible. One of the most sought-after errors, however, is the wrong planchet error. This occurs when a Jefferson nickel is accidentally struck on a blank meant for another coin, for example, a penny or a dime. These coins end up lighter or smaller than normal and often have a different color tone due to the metal composition. They are extremely rare and can fetch thousands of dollars, and let's not forget the full steps variety, one of the defining features of valuable Jefferson nickels. The steps on Monticello's front porch are notoriously difficult to strike perfectly. On most nickels, they appear weak or worn down, even straight from the mint. But on rare coins with sharp, detailed strikes, you can see every individual step clearly, 5 or even 6 distinct steps. These full steps nickels are highly sought after, and their value skyrockets with higher grades. Even proof coins, those special editions struck for collectors, have their own appeal. The 1990 S-proof nickels from the San Francisco Mint are beautifully made with mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs. While most proof coins are common, a flawless example with deep cameo contrast and perfect surfaces can bring in impressive prices at auction. Now, one of the biggest surprises for collectors comes from the 1990 D Jefferson Nickel. Coins struck in Denver that year were known for having a few striking anomalies, including weak strikes and die cracks. Some even show slight doubling on the lettering or die polish lines that make them stand out from ordinary issues. These subtle variations might seem insignificant, but to experienced collectors, they can mean the difference between a 5-cent coin and a 5-figure treasure. So how can you tell if your 1990 Jefferson nickel might be worth a fortune? Let's break it down. Start by checking the mint mark under the date. Then, carefully inspect the coin under bright light or magnification. Look closely at the lettering, the date, and Jefferson's portrait for any signs of doubling or distortion. Flip the coin and study the steps of Monticello. Can you see every step clearly? If so, you might be holding a full steps variety. Next, check the edges. Are they complete, or is there a small curved section missing? That could indicate a clipped planchet. Is the coin's design slightly off-center or incomplete on one side? That could mean a striking error. If you find anything that looks unusual, it's worth sending your coin to a professional grading service for authentication. A certified grade can dramatically increase its market value and help you confirm whether your nickel is one of the rare ones collectors dream about. Now, let's talk about the story that truly stunned the coin collecting community. One extraordinary 1990 Jefferson nickel, an absolutely perfect example with sharp full steps, no visible marks, and incredible eye appeal, was sold at auction. Collectors knew it was something special the moment it appeared. The bidding started modestly, but as word spread, excitement grew. By the end of the auction, the hammer price reached an unbelievable $54,700. Yes, $54,700 for a coin worth just 5 cents. It's stories like these that remind us why coin collecting is so fascinating. Every small detail, every strike, every mark, every minting quirk, tells a story about history, craftsmanship, and chance. The Jefferson nickel may seem ordinary at first glance, but hidden among millions of coins are rare treasures waiting to be discovered. So, before you spend that handful of nickels, take a closer look. That small coin from 1990 might not just be pocket change, it could be a piece of history worth tens of thousands of dollars. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next discovery. We share real stories of coins that changed lives and tips on how you can spot valuable treasures hiding in your own collection. Today, we're going on a fascinating journey through time, all the way back to 1972, to uncover the story of one of America's most recognizable and collectible coins, the United States of America Jefferson nickel, the 5-cent piece. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a nickel from the 1970s. How valuable could it possibly be? Well, buckle up, because by the end of this video, you'll realize that some of these seemingly ordinary coins have turned out to be worth a small fortune. In fact, one rare 1972 Jefferson nickel sold for an unbelievable $73,300. Yes, you heard that right, a 5-cent coin that's worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house. So stay tuned till the very end, because we're going to break down everything, the history, the design, the varieties, the errors, and the secret details that could make your 1972 Jefferson nickel worth thousands. Let's begin by going back in time. The year was 1972, Richard Nixon was president, gasoline was 36 cents a gallon, and America was going through massive cultural change. It was a time when coins weren't just currency, they were miniature time capsules reflecting the craftsmanship and pride of a nation. The Jefferson nickel had already been circulating for 34 years at that point, first introduced in 1938 as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel. The man behind the original design, Felix Schlag, won a national competition to create the Jefferson nickel's look, and his design became one of the most enduring in U.S. coinage history. His artistic interpretation of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, captured both strength and dignity, qualities that made this coin iconic for decades. On the obverse, or front, of the 1972 Jefferson nickel, you'll see a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, along with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," on the left and "Liberty" on the right, followed by the date, 1972. Just below the date, you might notice a small mint mark indicating where the coin was struck, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no letter at all, which means it came from the Philadelphia Mint. Turning to the reverse side, you'll see a depiction of Jefferson's home, Monticello, his beautiful neoclassical estate in Virginia. Above it reads, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, while below it, you'll find Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. The Monticello design, elegant and symmetrical, became one of the most enduring symbols of American numismatics. Now, while the design itself didn't change in 1972, the production details certainly did. Millions of Jefferson nickels were minted that year across the 3 major mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, but not all of them came out identical. That's where things get exciting for collectors, because it's the small differences, imperfections, and minting quirks that make some coins stand out from the crowd. Let's start with the basics. Condition. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A circulated 1972 nickel that's been in pockets, wallets, and vending machines for decades might only be worth its face value, but a pristine, uncirculated example can be worth a fortune. When coins are graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, those in mint state, MS, condition, especially MS 67 or higher, are extremely rare. These coins show razor-sharp details, bright luster, and virtually no signs of wear, but that's only the beginning. Some 1972 nickels are valuable because of their minting errors, the fascinating mistakes that occurred during production. And believe it or not, these errors are what drive collectors wild. One of the most famous and valuable varieties is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is impressed twice by the minting die, slightly out of alignment, causing a shadow-like doubling effect on the letters, numbers, or design elements. On a 1972 Jefferson nickel, doubling might be visible on the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or even on Jefferson's eye or profile. If you spot any clear doubling under magnification, you might be holding something very special. Another exciting variety to watch for is the full steps Jefferson nickel. The steps on the front of Monticello are one of the hardest parts of the coin to strike cleanly. Because of that, most coins have weak or incomplete step details. But when all 5 or 6 steps appear perfectly separated and defined, the coin is labeled as a full steps variety. Collectors pay huge premiums for full steps coins, especially those in high mint state grades. Next up are off-center strikes, one of the most visually striking errors. This happens when the planchet, the blank metal disc, isn't properly centered during the striking process, leaving part of the design cut off. If your 1972 nickel has an off-center design but the date is still visible, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Then there's the clipped planchet error, where a small portion of the coin is missing, usually a curved section at the edge. This occurs when the metal strip from which blanks are cut overlaps slightly, causing the punch to clip part of the previous blank. These errors are highly collectible, especially when the missing section is noticeable but doesn't cut into key design features. Another fascinating and rare variety is the wrong planchet error, when a nickel is struck on a blank meant for another denomination, such as a penny or dime. These coins will have unusual weights and colors, and because they're so rare, they can sell for incredible amounts of money. You might also find die cracks or cuds, which are raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface caused by aging or damaged dies. These imperfections might seem small, but depending on their size and location, they can make a coin highly desirable to error collectors. Now, one thing many collectors overlook is the proof version of the 1972 Jefferson nickel, produced at the San Francisco Mint. These coins have the S mint mark and were specially struck for collectors using polished dies and blanks. They have mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs that make them stand out beautifully. Most proof coins aren't extremely valuable, but rare varieties, like those with minting flaws or deep cameo contrast, can fetch surprising prices. So, how do you know if your 1972 nickel could be valuable? start by examining the mint mark, Denver, D, San Francisco, S, or none, Philadelphia. Proof coins will have the S mint mark and a brilliant mirror finish. Then, look at the steps on Monticello. If all are clearly visible and distinct, you might have a full steps example. Check for any doubling on the text, any cracks on the surface, or off-center details. And most importantly, check the coin's condition. A shiny, untouched coin with sharp details is always worth closer inspection. It's also worth noting that some collectors have discovered 1972 Jefferson Nickels with unusual metal tones, from rainbow-like toning to darker hues caused by chemical reactions over time. These naturally toned coins can attract premium prices if they're visually appealing. Now, let's talk about the story that made headlines in the coin world. A few years ago, an extraordinary 1972 Jefferson nickel surfaced at a major auction, a flawless example with full steps, immaculate luster, and razor-sharp details. Collectors immediately recognized it as one of the finest known examples of its kind. When the auction opened, bids came in fast and furious. The coin, originally worth just 5 cents, quickly soared past estimates. By the end of the auction, it had sold for an astonishing $73,300, yes, $73,300 for a Jefferson nickel. Just imagine that for a moment, a tiny 5-cent coin, smaller than a bottle cap, selling for more than most people's annual salary. It's stories like these that keep collectors hunting, searching, and dreaming, because sometimes, history and luck align to create a masterpiece hidden in plain sight. So before you toss that old change in a jar or spend those nickels on a cup of coffee, take a closer look. The next rare treasure might already be in your hands. Every coin tells a story, of art, history, and the people who made and used it. And sometimes, that story is worth far more than its face value. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the story of the 1972 Jefferson Nickel. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more about rare and valuable coins, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our next discovery.